showed you Shiaght Laa as mobile Shiaght She Robert a Carslach Mish. I'm Bob Carswell, and I'd like to welcome you to Shiaght Laa. In this, the first edition of Shiaght Laa in this series, on Shiaght Laa Hir Cho and Hid Clares Strain No, Tashin Kor Trimid Shanach Vannin. We place special emphasis on the folklore of the island, as we hear of an exhibition opening this weekend based largely on the island's folklore, and also of a survey to try to evaluate what appears to be a cherished and unique tradition to the Isle of Man. There's an open invitation for people to attend the joint annual lecture promoted by the Isle of Man Victorian Society and Eiraght Ashoonagh Vannin, Manx National Heritage, and this is entitled Looking After Your Victorian Home. Kit Wed is a former education officer with the Victorian Society UK. She's the author of a book called The Victorian House, which is an invaluable resource for anyone wishing to restore a Victorian house or to enhance its special features. Kit Wed's lecture, Looking After Your Victorian Home, will be taking place in the Lecture Theatre at the Manx Museum in Douglas at 2:30 p.m. this coming Saturday, the 26th of October. And all members of the public are most welcome indeed. There's no entry charge for the event. Again with Eiraght Ashoonagh Vannin, from this Saturday the 26th of October until next Wednesday the 30th, the Grove Museum in Ramsey has a children's trail, Grove and Gizmos. 15 unusual objects have strangely appeared at the Grove Museum, and they need help to round them up. Standard site admission applies, which is £9 for adults. Children go free, though children under the age of 12 must be accompanied by an adult. Students over 18 with a valid student card pay £4.50. You can head to the Grove for the children to track down these objects, these gizmos, which are out of their time. Tashin Orlach rish en and Matthias Moors and Allen Colchonalt rish Henry Bloom Noble. Nod den eischen ren cor bun tailies ons doelish, se vlein hochi jeg kerfid a she, as vishen ons kele ri, erskin kronk krellin. Nasan me lesh tailies noble nol jorish en tre shen ons red Westmoreland, van troggle shen and hid tailies ons kele ri as image, as me saw ve rechich de darach shen de ve tai tash di vanning. Hrau shen der a naichid jeg as Jesus feed. Tre henk PMC Kermud de vein kid stuurde de jay. Ons in het jay koert farslikus en spare se vein jay, na san mi va mullach courage herris shen, as henk shen de vei alaut de huisje gemaakt duches fai. Gammes alaut ellen se trogel shen, te schemer elia, as te tashmenis en jay de chuljuhor schuller kummel en shen, as be fair jou farslit en tier, just saren short chit, en sheoleas feed jera fower. Julia Ashby Smyth is well known for her work as a curator of art exhibitions in the Hodgson Loom Gallery, upstairs in the Laxey Woolen Mills, but she's also well known for her own artwork, some of which represented the Isle of Man at the Festival Anticeltique de Lorient a couple of years ago, a gigantic festival not just of music and dance, but of the arts, visited by from 750,000 to 900,000 people over about 10 days in August. Some of Julia Ashby Smyth's work as an artist and illustrator is now going on show at the Manx Museum in Douglas, where I went to talk to the exhibition curator for Eiraght Ashoonagh Vannin, Nicola Tooms, and I spoke to Julia Ashby Smyth herself. We're here in the temporary exhibition gallery at the Manx Museum in Douglas, and Nicola Tooms, you're curating an exhibition. So what can we expect to see in this forthcoming exhibition?
It's really exciting. There's over 70 magical creatures in here. Now, some of them are really familiar faces that we all know and love, and the Fenordri and Leanne and She, and the familiar figures from Manx folklore. But some of the other ones are ones that Julia has observed herself from walks in the countryside or from stories that have been told, or some of them are just actually little snippets that she's got from reading the Manx scrapbook and things like that. So some lesser known entities and some from her own observations and imagination as well. So it's a really good mashup.
What's the exhibition called, and when will it be open to the public?
It's called Rare Sightings and Urban Faeries, and we open on Saturday the 26th, that's this Saturday coming, and we're open until February, so there's plenty of time to see it. We will have a trail available, so some of the fae, the magical creatures from the exhibition, have escaped out into our galleries, and we are asking people to come and go around the galleries and see if they can spot them and write them down on the form and then hand them in and get a little prize. So we'll have that little trail going. It'll be open from Saturday and people will be able to come and see what we've done. We've tried to create a magical atmosphere in here for all of the creatures, so you'll be able to see that there's different zones and we've dressed it up with different areas. So we've got our nautical area with our glass fishing floats and our driftwood, and our area with our ivy, and our little nano-fae area over there in the corner looks like a computer's exploded. So yeah, something a little bit different.
And there's even a section devoted to Fenodri gin.
Yes, it's really lovely. One of the things that I think people really like about that is anyone that's ever looked at those labels and admired them, Julia has got her concept artwork out, so you can see exactly why the characters are posed as they are, why they're wearing what they're wearing, certain plants that she's put on those labels, why they're all there. So everything on those labels has got meaning. So when you look at the concept artwork, you can see exactly why everything is the way it is. So they're not just beautiful to look at, they're absolutely embedded with meaning as well. So they're really lovely.
Gormaimora.
Shade of A.
Julia Ashby Smyth were here surrounded by walls full of very striking figures. So what do you take as your starting point for your work?
A lot of this is based in Manx folklore. So that might just be one line that I've read in like the Manx scrapbook or the notebook or the customs, and it is maybe a whole story. It might be one line, it might be one word, and then that just sparks something. It might be the character, it might be the essence of the place. And so that's where I start. Lots of research, lots of reading.
But when it comes to capturing the figure then, is there a particular part of the figure that you start with?
Normally start with the eyes or the feet. If it's more of a mystical character, it tends to be from the eyes outwards. If it's one of the daft ones, often it's the feet first. I don't know why. It just is.
You work in several different sorts of media. How do you choose which was appropriate for this particular character?
Sometimes I don't know what I'm going to choose, and it just happens. So I might generally start off with a pencil sketch, really rough pencil sketch, and then I might throw some more pencil in, or I might throw some ink at it and then think, oh, I'm going to put some watercolour in it. It emerges, sometimes without a lot of thought.
You mentioned Manx folklore, but the title of the exhibition includes Urban Faeries.
Urban fairies are the fairies that followed folk when they moved from the country in rural areas. Their customs and their household fae just moved with them. And so our urban fairies that lick your glasses and stop you putting the USB port in the right way, they're all the descendants of those, what you'd call maybe countryside fairies. And so they're the urban fairies and the nano fae that have just evolved to take advantage and cause mischief in our modern technical world.
Some of them are black and white, some of them are colour. How does that evolve as you're going along?
Some things will always just be a pencil. I say always, that sometimes later on in life I decide to throw some colour on them, on a print or something. But they dictate themselves. Some pieces started off and were always going to be maybe black and ink, and then something just took hold and decided to... I use a lot of inks and coloured inks, and I've discovered iridescent watercolour and granulating watercolour, which they just work colour into a different way, and you can work on top of it with more ink, and sometimes they're multi-layered, and then sometimes a glittery pen comes along. So it dictates itself. There's no set plan, and I'll stop when I think I've done enough. Have some chocolate and a coffee, and then come back to it.
Your training in art then, when did you decide that the fairy lore, the folklore, was the direction that you wanted to apply it to?
Oh, there's just so many stories, and there's no defined what's right or wrong. If I want to have something with 6 arms, it'll have 6 arms. There are no rules, and everyone's thought process is different and imagination is different. This is just my imagination, but other people might see something completely differently, and that's the joy of folklore, in that there is no right way or wrong way. And one Maudie-do might look like that, but another Maudie-do might look like something else, because there's many of them. It's not just one.
And quite a few of your characters seem to have a basis in the natural world as well.
I spend a lot of time rooting around in the undergrowth, very happy in amongst trees and looking at branches. And I believe Archibald Knox used to spend a lot of time just looking at the way ivy intertwined. And sometimes my husband Dave will say, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just giving it a good coat of looking at." And I'll be there for hours just looking at the way things intertwine, and those natural lines are so beautiful that you hope that they will then move into my brain and come out through my pencil.
So how many images have you got in the exhibition?
It's 77. Not all are new. Some you might be familiar with, but they might be in a different colour form or a different size or just in a different form. But there are 40 completely brand new. So I think there might be slightly more than that. But over half is brand new, not seen before. Sometimes I'll do a print and just on paper, or sometimes I'll put it onto a canvas, or something called an eco block, which is, it's like a cross between a canvas and paper, but it's all very eco-friendly. And it changes the dynamics sometime of the image, and you can then throw colour at it or manipulate it, change the size, elongate it, squash it, do other things with it, flip it. There's all, yes, you can play with it digitally.
Are there particular characters that you're drawn to?
There is a witch that I'm very partial to, and I'll be quite sad if she goes, and that's the mark of the crowfoot in Manx folklore. The mark of the crowfoot was sometimes used, would appear on the face of a witch. And so I rather like her. But then I really like some of the little nano-fae, the daft stuff as well. So it flips which ones I'm very drawn to, from the darkest to the daftest. Yes.
As you're inspired by Manx folklore, are there particular aspects of Manx folklore that you're drawn to as well?
All of it. It's all fascinating. Some of them are obviously cautionary tales to keep you away from boggy areas or dark caves. Some are to keep people on the path morally and with their feet, to stop them straying into the realms of succubi and liane and sheaths that might steal men. And some are dark and weird, and there's just so many. I could do another exhibition and do another 77 pictures and not repeat any of them. That's just, I love it. Some of it is really weird. And then somebody will come up and tell you a story. Did you know? My grandmother said that. And off you go. There's another story.
And perhaps quite a few people will know you for your work as it appears on bottles of gin in the Isle of Man, which has obviously become very popular, and particularly for the labels, I might say.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, then, of course, I do have to test the gin quite radically to get the feel of what the label should look like. We sit down with Paul and Tiff and we brainstorm the folklore and the ideas around the gin, the tastes and the flavours and the things that have gone into it. And so within the exhibition, in the fin wing, as I'm calling it, are the original visuals, or copies of the original visuals, with the written details and thoughts and Manx folklore that apply to each label, along with the colour palette, and then the finished label. So some of the labels are quite different from their initial visuals, and some are they haven't gone through many changes, but there's 6 of those, and then there's The bottles, the Fenodry bottles, empty, I'm sorry, to go with them as well, so you can see how the whole thing has evolved and how much folklore is woven within the labels, why there is a hare on the label and why there is a butterfly and why there are bees and bumby cages.
I would call this the fin wing. As we walk down, you've referred to other sections of the exhibition as well.
We've got the wet, which are the mermaids and things of the sea. Then we have the weird, which is some of the more dark and odd things. Then the fin wing, and then we have things of the air, things with wings. Then we have the foresty folk and the mossy folk, and then we have the nano and the urban wing. It's broken up into those little areas. That's how I kind of saw it in my brain as I was trying to go to sleep at times, trying to work out how to set out the gallery. So.
Might some people recognise some of the images from the many books that you've contributed to as well as an illustrator?
There is, from the Manx fairy tales, there's an image from there. There's some of the images from the Corvid stamps. Others are just ones that I've played with and decided that needed another good looking at. They've not seen the light of day some of them have never seen the light of day, so I've just brought them out from the depths of my studio.
And this exhibition is celebrating your work as a visual artist, but you also write.
I doodle some lettering together, if that's the correct phrase, but yeah, to describe some of the folklore that I create of my own thought processes or things that I've seen or things that have happened in the house, I will write the descriptions for those. I just write things to give them their story, because their stories evolve as I'm drawing them. The things that I haven't read about, some things appear on the page completely with no backstory, and they will tell me their story as I draw it, so I have to write that.
Perhaps you will be illustrating your own work at some point.
I keep threatening to do a book of my own, like the urban fairies, and just not as a novel, but as a more of an I Spy kind of, oh yeah, we've got one of those, I've seen one of those, and like the mossy stump wizards and things that you can see in the forests, they all have their own little traits. So it wouldn't be a novel, it would just be, this is a mossy stump wizard and this is what it does and this is where you'll find it and this is what it eats and things like that.
Go to my more, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Nicola Tooms of Eiraght Ashoonagh Vannin, and the artist Julia Ashby Smyth, whose artwork will be on display in an exhibition entitled Rare Sightings and Urban Faeries, and that's at the Manx Museum in Douglas, opening this coming Saturday, the 26th of October, with a chance to buy some of the works on show as well. Admission to the exhibition is free, and you can look out for that trail to spot Julia's characters elsewhere in the museum. An teacht an seo tit an scoileann an Ellen sé Bernatán son an lé imbach. As chama sin tá sin tit gus le ar lé, a sin an tréit a slai a gulmagit son hop tú né. Sin an orta Eiraght Ashoonagh Vannin, as séiseach an Elia, tebbal cén ar lé, son slai a de hit, as de vel kiel chonidjach jay coch le an ní. As ag a treich edin de goilaarn ons jinnawoord Elia jay nuvis jin de vei na chliachte fi chian, as tully me chion shen ons midin na ghe. This weekend, Saturday the 26th of October and Sunday the 27th, the Groudle Glen Railway in Onken is inviting families to join them for their not-so-scary hop-to-nay trains to enjoy a child-friendly, spooky atmosphere. The usual fares apply, pre-booking is required, and you can do that online at ggr.org.uk, ggr.org.uk. As well as enjoying the Victorian steam train ride amongst the friendly spooks, there are refreshments and a chance to come and meet Ginny the Witch in her lair with her spooky surprises for all the children. So that's Saturday the 26th and Sunday the 27th. On Sunday the 27th of October there's a hop-to-nay celebration at Cregnish Folklife Museum for a special day packed with music, dance and crafts, with a free moot for every child. There'll be 2 sessions from 10 till midday and then from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. You can book online at manxnationalheritage.im. Manx National Heritage, all one word. manxnationalheritage.im. There's a special family ticket for 2 adults and 2 children at £30. Otherwise, it's adults at £15.50, children aged from 3 to 17 at £5, whilst under 3s go free. There's a student rate of £7.50 for students over 18 who hold a valid student card. And then from Monday the 28th through to the day itself, Hoptoonay, Thursday the 31st of October, you can turn up for turnips and prepare for Hoptoonay at Cregnish. Standard admission charges apply, so that's adults at £10, children to 17 are free, but children under the age of 12 must be accompanied by an adult. Students over 18 with a valid student card pay £5. Turnips, swedes, moots will be available at £3, with a free drilling service throughout the day, which saves all that spoon work carving out the flesh of the inside of the moot. So that's at Cregnish from Monday the 27th to Thursday the 31st between 10 and 3 o'clock. Hielsyn mechion tacherten te Colchonelt on Sachteniach rish Hoptoonay, Gino Erlus on an Laheen. As an act as yn gyn neil years and chlag syl yng sio, tas yn greide fel ei tachert yn chydla jegas fi ger a fawr. Ach rosh mar au clig on the cajin as raus yn toiart cwntyn y and souskus mein ni as eisgolstiach sy'n le. Os na sian le yn fy gyn yn green. As tre hai yn green de lai, fy sien gera yn le. As ma so fod goel toiart le, cart, lug yn lai grenia. Sien de greid ar au slaid in a word eilage e Hoptoonay sa dorachus et Shiaght Laa sauna. We'll hear more about Hoptoonay and Shiaght Laa next time, which will be on the very evening, as we go through from Jedda Fawr, the end of autumn, to Sauna and Mehauna, the month of Sauna, which is the Manx name for the month of November, and the church turned this season into Hollantide, the time of Hallows. The end of October is celebrated elsewhere as Halloween, but here in the Isle of Man, that time of year is Hoptoonay, which has its own unique customs and traditions, and there's an opportunity for people to take part in a special survey about that. In a week's time we have Hoptoonay coming up, an annual celebration which seems to be strong in the island. Now, James Franklin of Culture Vannin, you want to find out exactly how strong it is, so how are you going to go about that?
We're going to be asking the public to help us, and that's the main thing we want. What we've realised is that every year we have conversations amongst family and friends and in the office about how it feels like it's a thing which is growing or certainly changing over time. And we have this general positive attitude of, oh, isn't it wonderful how many people are embracing the Manx traditions of Hoptoonay? But in reality, we don't really know because we've never measured it. And to my knowledge, no one has ever actually tried to quantify how many people are singing, what they're singing, how many people go about with turnips and the like. And so we're trying to answer that this year by trying to put a measure on it in some way.
How will the general public then be able to take part in this survey?
What we're looking for is people from all over the Isle of Man. Doesn't matter where you live on the island. What we hope you might be able to do is to download or print off this one sheet of paper with just 6 or so very simple questions. And it can be anonymous. And the questions are, where do you live? How many groups of people are visiting? How many of those sang songs? For those that sang, what was the song? And then how many groups had turnips with them? And then what did you give to them? And so it's that simple. So I imagine the way people can do it is just print this off, have it near the door, and on the evening of the 31st of October, just keep a tally of the people who visit. And then this can then just be returned to us at Culture Vannin, and hopefully we'll have enough numbers to give just a number that we can go forward into the future with.
We have the collections of William Harrison and A.W. Moore from the 19th century. How much work has been done in the past on Hoptoonay?
Hopchinay has always been a thing which people have been interested in the Manx circles, and certainly people like Yvonne Creswell at the museum did some excellent work, and Stephen Miller now is doing excellent work into for songs and more. But in terms of quantifying it, I don't know if this has ever been done, the attempt to just measure who is knocking on the doors at Hopchinay and where they are doing it and where the regional variations are. And in a sense, this is so simple. The way you do it is just to have volunteers to record who is coming and what they're doing on the doors. And this is what we're attempting to do now, because it's not been done in the past, and this would be invaluable information now if it had been done 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. And so we're doing it now so that in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, 50 years' time, we will be able to look back and understand where we are comparative to 2024.
Go to my morning.
Jane away.
The Online and Education Resources Officer for Culture Vannin, James Franklin. You can find a copy of the survey online at culturevannin.im. Culture Vannin, all the one word, culturevannin.im. As Shiaght, be tulliumach on Hopchinay and nachir from Shiaght Laa. There'll be more about Hopchinay next time in Shiaght Laa. But now, from me, Bob Carswell, Achnish, Wompin, Robert Akashlach, Sledden you.